politics, power plays, and mandatory death penalties. Yep, it is Florida. Let's break this down. Welcome back to Beyond the Bill Number, where we unpack intriguing and often bizarre pieces of legislation. This week, we've got a true political drama unfolding in Florida, where the legislature and Governor Ron DeSantis are locking horns over immigration policy. If you thought a special session was about convening to get work done, well, Florida lawmakers are here to prove it's also about who has the power to call the shots. Let's get into it. Joining me today, of course, is Stephen, our residential political analyst and expert in the art of legislative conflict. Stephen, let's dive into the Trump Act. What a title, huh?
Oh, well, it's definitely a dramatic title, Sarah. And I suspect that over the next couple of years, it won't be the only act that has the word Trump in the title. But then again, when you've got two powerhouses like Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature duking it out, it is fitting. The Trump Act is formally known as the Tackling and Reforming Unlawful Migration Policy Act. And it takes aim, as you might expect, at immigration enforcement, but just not only in the way you might expect. So Florida lawmakers, in a very unexpected move, have decided to assert their independence from Governor Ron DeSantis. And of course, President Trump's policies are a big influence here.
Yeah, it's like watching reality TV shows unfold in real life and kind of not where you're expecting to see them. But let's back up for just one sec. DeSantis calls for a special session on immigration policy, and suddenly the legislator says, hold up, we're doing it our way. What kind of sparked this showdown?
Well, the plot thickens. So Governor Ron DeSantis called for this special session starting on January the 27th. Now, that's already very unusual because the regular session doesn't actually begin until March. So it's very unusual for a legislature, any legislature, to actually call a special session before the real session has actually happened. It's normally called during the session for emergencies, or often in the off year, when they need to deal with something that's come up, but not before the session actually begins. And lawmakers were caught off guard by this because it wasn't something that they'd planned or something that arranged between the two of them. And of course, they didn't feel like they'd been properly consulted. So they threw a bit of a hissy fit. And instead of just following along, they decided to start their own session. So they gavelled in, as you have to at the start of the session. Obviously, the state constitution says they have to actually do the session if the governor has called the session. So they gavelled in, but then immediately gavelled out, ending that session, and then started their own session and gavelled into that one as well. And after just a day or two, they'd come up with the Trump Act. So to talk about a mic drop moment, it's like the legislature said, thanks, but no thanks, Governor. We've got our own ideas. And they align a lot more with Trump's immigration priorities than you do.
Okay. And what are these priorities exactly? What's in the bill that's so different from DeSantis's proposal?
Well, it's not hugely different. They're both sort of tackling the same issue, and they're both going to the sort of the same lengths as you might expect for an act that's called the Trump Act. So it is a major overhaul, though, of the current immigration sort of laws in Florida. It's got nearly $485 million in funding. It creates 149 new positions in the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. But the real fireworks come with some controversial parts of it. So, for example, it introduces mandatory death penalties for unauthorized immigrants convicted of capital offenses. It eliminates in-state tuition for DACA recipients. And on top of that, there are two big grant programs which encourage local law enforcement to work with federal immigration authorities. So far, so good, sort of quite strict immigration proposals and so on. But the kicker is that the bill centralizes immigration enforcement under the Agriculture Commissioner, rather than have it spread across different agencies, which was what DeSantis proposed, and obviously with an oversight role for the governor's office. So basically a whole new structure of immigration enforcement.
And wait a second, back it up. Mandatory death penalties for unauthorized immigrants, that definitely ups the stakes to what we kind of have going on here. And the agriculture commissioner overseeing immigration enforcement, that kind of seems like a power move, but the real drama isn't just the contents of the bill. It's kind of the tension between the legislature and DeSantis, right?
Yes, absolutely. So this is all about power. And who gets to call the shots in Florida politics? Not right now, but sort of going forward into the future as well. So the bill passed with strong support, 82-30 in the House and 21-16 in the Senate. Obviously, Democrats weren't too happy, but then they are a minority in Florida politics. So the bill still passed. DeSantis, though, wasn't happy about being sidelined and has initially said that he would veto the bill. And he posted about it on social media, calling out lawmakers for actually pushing their own version. But he has some specific issues with it. He claimed the act was designed to fail, and he called it weak and destructive. And he said that current practices like collaboration with ICE and so on were already yielding positive results and didn't need to be changed. His biggest beef, of course, is with moving the responsibility for enforcement from the governor's office having this sort of central function to the agriculture commissioner, which on the surface does seem a little bit odd. He noted that the word agriculture appears over 30 times in the bill, while the word deport wasn't there at all. So there's a bit of one-upsmanship for you. How many times can you get the word deport into your legislation? But recently, he has taken a more conciliatory tone. He says there have been conversations ongoing and that they hope to land the plane soon on something, the immigration that they can both agree on. So it is like watching this political dance. We're not sure who's leading, but it does seem as though they're both sort of pulling back a little bit here, and because they are going to have to carry on working together, obviously, into the future.
Well, it sounds like DeSantis is trying to kind of walk back this initial maybe overreaction. But the bill could have some serious implications beyond just this immigration policy and mandatory death sentences and things like that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So beyond the immigration provisions, the Trump Act could actually be a game changer for Florida's sort of political landscape. The creation of these new enforcement mechanisms, the elevation of the agriculture commissioner's role could, if it survives, of course, if it sort of sticks and makes it all the way through, they don't come up with some sort of compromise version, then it could show this dramatic shift in the balance of power. Who will be influential going forward? Maybe if the commissioner's position remains quite powerful, it could be like a coveted spot for future political heavyweights in a way that it isn't at the moment. And of course, it's really important to note one point here, which is DeSantis is term limited as governor. So he's not going to be able to stand in the gubernatorial race in 2026. And so the new governor, whoever that might be, will likely be the one who's overseeing the implementation of these changes.
So this could potentially change the course of Florida's political future. It's not just about immigration. It's about who holds the power in the state for years to come.
Absolutely. And there's been a lot of speculation that this is a sign that DeSantis's power is waning. Obviously, there's various moves, and in terms of he's not seen as necessarily as close to Trump as the Florida legislature might want him to be. And given that he's effectively a lame duck at this point because he's only got a year or so to go, there are some people speculating that this is a sign that the power is generally shifting and that the legislature will assert itself much more. But it's difficult to tell if they can come to an agreement. DeSantis is a extremely canny political operator. There's no reason why he can't pull back from this and actually turn it into a victory, which is something he's very good at doing. So the timing here is very, very important, though, with the Trump Act. So it's set to go into effect in July 2025. So that, as we've said, the next governor will play a big role in how it's rolled out. But it could also create issues for gubernatorial candidates in 2026, because it will be right in the middle of all of this being sort of implemented. And so it's shaping up then to be beyond just the immigration effects of this, to be a sort of strategic move by lawmakers to align with Trump's immigration vision, and one that would have long-term consequences for Florida's political future, perhaps even beyond Trump's term.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of states are kind of catching on to that very quickly in the year here, and that, they're going to really dig in for the next 4 years, at least to align with Trump. Absolutely. But, obviously, with the way policy is passed, this could be the law of the land for a very long time. It's not just a flash in the pan bill, it's the long game here. And we see a lot of other states doing this. This isn't the only one. We're going to talk next week about some interestingly horrifying bills from Missouri and Mississippi that are kind of related to this. But, this is really going to make things interesting in Florida's 2026 gubernatorial race. And it's also interesting to just see kind of how people are saying, I'm not playing chess, I'm playing checkers with this stuff now.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You can read too much into it, as though there's some sort of mastermind 3 steps ahead and so on. Perhaps it's not like that. It's probably just people getting a bit angry with each other. So the Trump Act, it doesn't have all the solutions to Florida's perceived immigration challenges. Obviously, if you're in the Republican Party in particular, or support them, but it is making a big statement. It's a sort of power grab wrapped in policy with a side of drama to it as well. So the real legacy of this bill might not be its specific immigration provisions, but how it redefines this relationship between the legislative and executive branches in Florida.
Yeah, bold move indeed. It's interesting to see how our country and politics just keep on evolving in different ways as literally the moments pass. And as always, Florida politics really never disappoint when it comes to intrigue, drama, and surprise twists. So, Stephen, thanks for walking us through this kind of political showdown. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about this as it develops. And to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes of Beyond the Bill Number, where we'll continue to bring you the latest on bills, no matter the ones that just make you go, wait, what is happening to us?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me, Sarah. Always a pleasure to break down the legislative theatre with you.